Now back to the show. This is The Law Show on CL 650.
She's gone, I better learn how to face it. She's gone.
Hey, and welcome back to The Law Show on CL 650. Today we're talking about family law. And from McQuarrieLLP, we have David Halkett and Sarah Morse. And we're going to get into what you do when someone comes in and they're thinking about separating and maybe getting divorced. And before we do that, we want to get to know you. And they're part of the family law department. There's one other person that does part-time. So, David, why don't you start first? When did you decide to get into family law? When were you called to the bar? Where did you go to school? All of that stuff.
Yeah, so I have my degree in history from UBC. Then I got my law from UBC in 1991.
Do you know how hard it is to get into UBC now?
I know. I don't think I'd get in now. I guarantee it. And so I started working, decided during my article year I wanted to do litigation side. And I did other more civil litigation for a couple of years. And then job opening came up at another firm, and I went to it, and I thought I'd do more civil than I did family, but family kind of morphed in. It's kind of like an amoeba that took me over. And
what was it that intrigued you?
Probably the fact that I had rent to pay at the time, but all kidding aside. But I kind of fell into it, and I had kind of the personality that could handle it. I didn't take the work home. Like some people I know got into family law and they just couldn't handle it because of it was too raw emotionally. I was able to handle that, and I just developed myself into being good at it over the years. So
when someone comes to see you, obviously when you're at work, you have the capacity to understand their problem because you've seen it many times before.
Exactly.
So what you're saying is you just at 5 o'clock or 6 or 7 when you go home, you can be David Halkett, dad, and not worry about work, right?
Exactly, because I think that if one thing we have to remember as family lawyers is we guide them through the process. We can't become emotionally involved because then we're not able to give them good advice because then we become, in effect, them instead of their advocate.
Mm-hmm. And that's a great way of looking at it. It's like I'm here to guide and counsel you and to give you what the lay of the land is.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the old saying when you're a parent. You've got lots of friends. I don't want to be your friend. I want to be your parent.
Exactly.
Right?
You have to realize that the client's issues are there, and we help them get through them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Sarah, what was your background, and where did you go to school, and how did you get to Macquarie in family?
Well, mine's a little bit different. I certainly didn't fall into it. It was more of a conscious decision because I had done other areas of law. I had originally started in sort of corporate commercial, had done a little bit of criminal defense work out of law school. I had done my undergrad at Simon Fraser University in psychology and criminology. And
that must help. Psychology.
It absolutely does. And you learn things like mirroring and all of these and other techniques and counseling. And that is what drew me into family law to begin with, because doing a lot of the corporate work, you're very removed from the individuals. And I found I missed that client contact. And it is very much, as you describe, you have to hold your client's hand and you're guiding them through the process. And I think both David and I see it as helping clients get through to a better place and doing it in the best way for them, both financially, emotionally, whatever we can to help them through the process.
Now, is there a male-female dynamic that you think works better with different clients? Some clients might gravitate towards a man, to a woman, depending on if they're male or female. Do you see those trends? Do any of women come in? Do they want a female lawyer? Do they want a male lawyer? What do you say?
I think it's a mix. I mean, there definitely are some clients that feel more comfortable with either a female lawyer or a male lawyer, depending on their gender. But I find it tends to be more of just a fit. It's a personality fit, who they feel comfortable with, because you're telling your lawyer your deepest, darkest secrets about your relationship, your finances, things that concern you, things that worry you. So I think it more comes down to the personal fit.
Yeah, I think Sarah's right in that. We don't direct anyone to, a male client comes in, doesn't come to me, female clients don't go to Leah or Sarah. It's just, some may say, I want to have a male lawyer. They may say they want a female lawyer. It depends. Sometimes there's some cultural aspects as well that kick in. But generally, I think we can act on, it's not an issue for us either way.
Well, the great thing is you have that flexibility.
Exactly.
That is an issue, right?
Exactly.
All right. So when someone comes to you, are they pretty far down the road, or are they just feeling out their options in terms of separating and divorce?
Well, I do have some people who come in and they're thinking of separating, or they've been discussing whether the marriage isn't working and they want to know what their options are and their rights are.
Is that a good idea?
It is, for sure, because I've had people come in the past and they realize how much it's going to cost if they do separate, and they realize maybe it's not as bad as they think when they factor in what the cost is. So you have to know your rights before you make any decision. People don't buy a house without usually getting an inspection, but they'll separate without knowing what's going to happen. And so...
or where they stand.
Exactly. So they should come in, but I'd say probably at least 2/3 have already made the separation decision and then come in afterwards.
So they're living in the spare room or the basement or maybe their own apartment?
Yep.
I would say that's the majority of the cases, but you do get the gamut from people who literally come in with their checklist for their separation agreement and they've talked, they're on the same page with everything. And then people who are literally come in and say, I need to leave, what do I do? So it really is the full gamut depending on the client.
Now, we talked already in the show about financial situation. Maybe they can't afford to do it. And David, you just mentioned they'll stay together because of money. Is money a major factor in divorce?
It is, because there's probably nothing more stressful than, you have a very high mortgage that you're paying and one of the parties loses their employment or is sick or ill or something. So that causes major stress. The children are probably almost 1A, 1B in terms of stresses that cause the issues, different parenting styles, the fact that you are taking your children to numerous activities during the week and you never actually see your spouse. We all work long hours.
Some might say that's the perfect marriage.
Yes. I jokingly said that too. You can't fight if you don't talk, but of course that just drifts you apart too, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those kind of...
Well, that's when the kids leave. They look at each other and say, who are you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think money is a major factor, as well as, of course, children issues from my point of view.
So when someone is going to phone up and make an appointment with you, what do you want them to discuss in the first consultation? What do you cover?
Well, I mean, when someone first comes in to see us, our goal is to get to know as much as we can about them and so that we can figure out what their legal issues are and give them some ideas of what the law says pertaining to their situation and some options of what they can do, whether it's a separation agreement or whether we need to go ahead and just file a CPL on a property and go straight to court. So
then you might have complex things like abuse, mental abuse, financial abuse. You have all of those things to deal with.
Yep, you need to take all of that into account. So you need people to come in and be able to, we need to be able to get that information out of them. And part of that as well is documents. I mean, one of the easiest things for us is when someone comes in and brings all of their financial documents. They've got their marriage certificate, they've got their pension information, they've got bank statements, property assessments, and things like that, because it helps give us a better picture of what their asset situation looks like and potentially what we're dealing with.
And the hard thing is that because we're often the first time they've ever met us, they're sometimes a little reticent to go into all the details of why they're separating or why they
I'm sure
separate.
that's a floodgate that opens and just is nonstop.
It can be, but sometimes we do run into people who are more reticent, especially when we're talking about violence issues in the family. They may not really want to be upfront about it in the first because they're still not completely comfortable with us. And I totally understand that. But part of what we have to do is craft what is their best option by knowing the entire picture.
And are there clients where you have to take several visits to dig it out of them?
Oh, for sure. I've had cases that at times have been going on for 6 to 8 months, and then all of a sudden the client will say something finally that he's been hiding or she's been hiding an emotional aspect of the separation, and then all their positions they took all along have become crystal clear to me as to why. I remember one case when it was in a phone conversation I was having with the accountant. All of a sudden, he blurted something out, and everything became crystal clear as because some of the positions that were being taken seemed a little
harsh,
odd, over time,
Mm-hmm.
and didn't make sense to me. Like there was as I jokingly said to myself, I'll I'll file that in the cutting off my nose to spite my face file for the positions the guy wanted to take. But then it all became crystal clear. So the more that the clients can bring us the information, be more upfront in the initial meeting, the easier it is for us to craft the best solution for them to get them through what is a very trying time for them.
And David mentioned the ability to switch off at the end of the day. Do you find that hard?
I think it depends on the file. I mean, there are definitely files that I think for any lawyer are going to hit closer to home than others. So if there's ones that mirror your own circumstances, they might affect you a bit more. But as David said, I mean, when we're there, our goal is to be as compassionate and understanding and cognizant of their situation. But at the same time, you have to be able to go home and know that that's their life, that's their story, and we're going to advocate the best we can. But we need to look at the big picture, and we need to be able to go home at night to our families and know that that's our job. But we're going to do everything we can to help that person through that situation.
What's the greatest expectation of a client that you can't fulfill? What do they think they're going to get from seeing a family lawyer that you're just not able to do? Like, do they have some wonderful expectation that they're going to get, or is it they're going to get everything?
Parenting.
Or parenting?
Parenting can be. For me, I was going to say my spouse had an affair, so I shouldn't have to pay him or her anything. And it's like, you know.
Bad news file.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's just not going to work.
The fault of one party is going to help them.
Because some people still watch those during the day, especially if they had worked different shifts, they're at home, they have some of those divorce courts that are still on TV, you know, the reality shows. And what the judges can do in some states there, we can't do up here. But they think that fault is a factor.
So what you're saying is if you're a dirty dog and you have had a girlfriend on the side for 5 years and you get a divorce, you don't get extra because the husband's a dirty dog? Nope.
No.
That's not the way to...
Certainly not from the assets. Fault does not factor into division of assets.
Correct.
So that would be something that you can't do anything about.
Yeah.
And that's when people dig into their positions, right?
They can have some very odd positions that way. They'll say, well, they spent all this extra money on girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, and that can be a factor to some extent, in some factors, but not the fact that the boyfriend. It's how the money was spent. It's an interesting thing. But yeah, you're right. Some people think that they can get they can get more because of that. The other tough thing that I have, and I'm sure Sarah's faced this too, is, well, my friend got this in his or her divorce, and why am I getting less, or why is it taking so long compared to theirs? It's the factor, the other lawyer can be different, the case is different, there's different facts, but it's amazing how so many people, they get their advice from their friends, at the coffee shop, so to speak, and it's not really what the law is. So that can be tough.
So when you're thinking of getting separated or divorced, don't go to Starbucks with your friends and hash it out.
Exactly.
Call somebody who knows what they're doing.
Exactly.
Very true.
That's free advice from McQuarrie. David Halkett and Sarah Morris are in studio. We're going to find out about spousal support next on CL 650.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CL 650.